Bosu, you're awfully dressed up today. Well, yes I am, and that's because today we have a very special video that's covering a special topic. As you've probably seen on YouTube right now, a lot of people are talking about what happened in 2020 in the anime world. Castile, let's put a bunch of the video searches right now for best animes of 2020, worst animes of 2020, my favorite picks of anime in 2020, and what to expect in 2020, etc, etc, etc. But we're gonna do something a little different. As you know from watching this channel, we focus on, of course, how anime can teach you about the business world with very real examples tied to my experience in hotel management. And today we're also going to look at something very different that other people aren't talking about as much. Not the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, I have our own issues with that. Let's talk instead about the Anitubers themselves, the Anituber community. Which Anituber had the best 2020? How do we define which Anituber had the best 2020? And is it fair to even compare them? Yes, it is, and I will show you how with examples from the real business world like we always do. Yokoso minasan, I am the Anibosu, and welcome to a very special episode of Anime School of Business, and most importantly, the most coveted and new award in the Anituber community that they're all going to be after, the Anituber Share Stealer Award. Which Anituber stole the most share from their other Anituber friends? Who had the best performance in 2020? The Anituber Share Stealer, the A.S.S. Who was the biggest ass? It's A.S.S. That's the joke. It doesn't get much funnier on this channel. I apologize in advance. But if you've seen this channel's videos before, you already knew that. So, Anituber Share Stealer, the biggest ass of 2020. Which Anitubers are going to be? That's what we're going to be looking for. And then we're going to answer one key question about the business world at the same time. Is my result good? If I told you I made $1 million, is that good? What do you compare it to? How do you know if it's good? What are your competitors making? We're gonna answer all those questions in this video. First off, go to this timestamp if you wanna see how we define our comp set, our competitive set, which Anitubers we chose to compete in this situation, and how we picked them and why we picked them. Go to this timestamp if you want to see the methods and metrics we use to calculate who had the best year, which is very important. Go to, let's say, this timestamp if you want to see why results aren't always relevant and why share growth is more relevant than results. There's a key business tie in there, but also it answers a very key question of how you compare channels that are very different sizes, which we're going to be doing. And finally, if you just want to skip ahead, you're the kind of person that would do a test and never show your work, then right here, this timestamp is going to be the timestamp where we reveal the winner and the best Anituber, the best performance, and the biggest ass of 2020 of our Anituber community. At the end, we'll throw in a little bonus, the special Anibosu Honorable Mention Award to one particular channel that hit a metric that I think is very important to them. So if you want to see who that is, jump to that timestamp. All right, we have a lot to cover, so let's jump right into it. And we're going to start off with our comp set. So which Anitubers are going to be in our comp set, our competitive set? Who are competing against each other? Well, we've got Gigguk, we've got The Anime Man, we've got CDawgVA, we've got Mother's Basement, we've got Akidearest, we've got Nux Taku, and we've got Super Eyepatch Wolf, and we've got RDCworld1. So how did we pick these 8? Why these 8? Because they're my favorites. I do like a lot of these creators, so good for you. But more importantly, we needed a metric that would kind of tie them together. Size matters in several things in life, but very importantly in the business world. So if I've got a hotel that is 1,600 rooms, which I worked in San Diego, and I've got my most recent hotel, which is 205 rooms in Portland, Oregon, those are hard hotels to compare against each other because they're different areas and most importantly, very different sizes, which means they can do different things. Well, similar for these channels. They're all different sizes, but there's one metric that they all share in common. One, they talk about the anime community, which is obviously pretty important. But two, at the end of 2020, all of these channels had passed 1 million subscribers. So that's why if you may have one of your favorite Anitubers, like the Bosu here, that is under 1 million subscribers, that's why I didn't compare them, because we need to stay close to relevant to not throw off the numbers too much. We can have big gaps, like RDCworld1 has almost 4 million subscribers going into 2020, way eclipsing the rest of these performances. But it's close enough to be relevant, and I'll show you how we did that. So we've talked about the minimum size the channel needed to be at the end of 2020, which these people all surpassed. Congratulations to all of them for surpassing 1 million subscribers in 2020, or some that were already there. But the other one, of course, is the dates. We use statistics from the last or second to last day of 2019, available to us on Social Blade, and of course, the last to second last day of 2020 to be as comparable as possible. So those are our terms, those are our parameters, that's our comp set, and that already is very real to the business world. In your business, whatever industry it may be, like hotels for instance, finding like competitors to then compare your statistics to is one of the key ways you can answer that key business question, is what I'm doing good? Section 2, moving on here, is metrics and methods. How are we going to compare these 8 beautiful, talented Anitubers, and what are we going to use to compare their performances by? Well, in the hotel world, Castiel, go ahead and throw up that beautiful, sexy, data-driven star report on the screen right now. I love this kind of stuff because this is what I used to do in hotels for quite a while as a revenue director. This is the STAR report, Smith Travel Research Report, STR, and this would look at the key metrics of hotels. Occupancy, Castiel, please zoom in on that part, which says how many rooms you sold of your hotels relative to its size. ADR, Castiel over to the right, I believe a little bit, average daily rate. And finally, RevPAR, because you can't just count occupancy or ADR. They're both individually important, but you need to know the balance of the two of them, right? You can't just fill up your hotel with cheap rooms, and you can't just sell one room for a bunch of money, because that's not how you make the most money in hotels. We need to sell the most amount of rooms for the most amount of money. That is revenue per available room. Nice. Now, I'm not here to teach you about hotel management or hotel revenue management in this case, but the report is what matters, because we're going to use the same tactics of that report to then decide which of these Anitubers had the best year. Who was the biggest ass of 2020? The Anituber share stealer. What are our metrics? What would we have available to us? That's really how you do it. We know things like how many videos they created because I counted them and there's no metric available. I have to go count them manually for every one of these channels. So thanks, YouTube. But other statistics are available on things like Social Blade, for instance. So I can tell you exactly how many views each of these channels had at the end of 2019 and the total views they had in 2020. That is publicly available knowledge for large channels. I can also tell you how many subscribers they had over that time frame. So I know how many subs the channels had at the end of 2019 and how many they had in 2020. I can see how many subscribers they grew over that year. But that's all I can tell you. I can't tell you watch time. I can't tell you how much money they're making per ad click or how much money they made overall in the year. There's lots of websites that guess at that, but that's personal data and information that we don't have access to. So we have to work with the metrics that we do have access to. But are these 3 statistics enough becomes the question. Because just like hotels, each one of these statistics is important. But one, how do you compare them if they're very different sizes? If RDCworld1 has a lot of subscribers already, how can I compare that to the other properties? How can I compare that to the other channels that are still growing their subscribers? Similarly, Nux Taku makes a ton of videos. How can I compare that to channels that don't do that as much, like Gigguk or Super Eyepatch Wolf, that only do a couple of very craft videos? So that is where we need some ratios, some inferred statistics. We need to take these stats and make ratios out of them so they become more relevant to each other, just like we do in the business world. RevPAR, revenue per available room, in that previous star example I gave you, that is not a statistic that's out there. That is revenue divided by a statistic. That's a ratio. Let's do the same. What do we have? Well, views is probably one of the most important things we can work with because that's what matters the most to most channels. So let's use views. If we do views divided by videos, we've got a pretty good idea of how impactful the videos are and how much attention they get. Let's call that reach in this case. So reach is views per video. We also know how many views they have per subscriber. Well, that's pretty important too, right? Because if my subscribers come back and see my videos very frequently, and I have a good ratio of views to my subscribers, well, that's pretty effective. Let's call that loyalty. And finally, if I've got over here my subscribers relative to how many videos I have, well, that shows how many subscribers I'm kind of getting for each video I put out there. We'll call that capture. So now we've got 6 metrics. We've got our 3 core statistics. We've got our 3 inferred metrics based on ratios. So recapping, we've got total videos that are output, the total views they got each year, how many subscribers they got in total. We also have their views per video, or the reach that their videos have. We've got the views per subscriber, or the loyalty of their subscribers. And we've got the subscribers per video, or the capture rate of these channels. With these 6 metrics, we now have enough to kind of work around to see a really balanced approach as to how effective these channels were in 2020. But we still need to decide a couple more things. And one thing we need to talk about is the concept of share. So let's make this brief. Castillo, please put a beautiful pizza on the screen here on my wonderful Vanna whiteboard. This beautiful pizza here, which is divided into 6 slices for this example. I have 6 friends. That would be nice. If I have 6 people over total and we each get 1 slice of pizza, we all got equal slices of pizza. We all got equal share of that slice of pizza, We got equal share of that pizza. That hijacked me. Okay, I'm back. But what happens if the bossu in this example is much bigger and greedier than other people, and I take 2 of those slices and I eat them? Now my remaining 5 friends, of which I probably won't have at the end of this example, now have to share 4 slices of pizza. My share increased. I took more pizza than they did, and they are now sharing less pizza of the whole, which means their share decreased. This matters, and this is very important to answering our question of, is my result good? And we're going to cover the rest of that in the next section. We're talking about results versus growth and why it matters to our Anitubers to figure out who of these Anitubers had the biggest ass in 2020. But also it's important to the business world because it's going to answer that key question of, is my result good? We just talked about the pizza if you're in the last section. We talked about the share. We talked about me taking more share because I'm big, greedy, and hungry. And we talked about my friends not having as much share of the pizza. So why does this matter? Share is how you offset size differences. Because if you know how big you are and how much pizza you deserve, and you know how much pizza you are now getting, you know your rightful place, and you know what you're doing now. That is your performance. Here's what I should be doing, but here's what I'm actually doing. And that could be better or worse than what you should be doing. And that's usually how you decide, relative to size, how a business is performing. And most importantly, is this result good? I got 1 slice of pizza. Is that result good? Nope, that turned out to be my fair share. I got 2 slices of pizza. Is that result good? For me, yes, that result's very good because I'm getting more share than everybody else. For my friends, that result's not so good. They are now getting less pizza, they're more hungry, their share is not as good. This is why we need to talk about things like the core results versus growth. We cannot just talk about the total subscriber count by itself because RDCworld1 would crush it. They have tons of subscribers. They're almost triple the next biggest channel in our competitors. That information is relevant, but it's not the full story. What is the full story though, is how much of the pizza, the subscriber pizza, did they have in 2019 and how much did they have in 2020? How do we calculate that? Well, we need to know how big the pizza is, right? So if we know the total subscribers of that one channel, well, let's take the subscribers of every channel, add them up, and now we've got our subscriber pizza, which is a really weird concept. Here's a subscriber pizza. Good luck, Castillo, trying to visualize what that looks like. But now that we know that the size of the subscriber pizza, I now know how much the slice of subscriber pizza RDCworld1 is holding. But even more importantly, I know the 2019 RDCworld slice of subscriber pizza, and I know the 2020 RDCworld1 slice of subscriber pizza. I can't believe I said that without tripping over that word, so slice of subscriber pizza. Jeez. Great, so that is the concept of share, that's the concept of share growth, and that is a key metric we're gonna be using all of our metrics here to decide who had the best, because this is the Share Stealer Award. Who grew the most? So let's briefly talk about why. Why are we doing it this way? This is how you answer that very key business question, because it all comes down to this. Your results are a product of one of 2 things, either what you, the business, are doing or what the market is doing to your business. What do I mean by that? Let's use a very quick example. If I am Google Pixel and I'm selling cell phones, and I've got Apple across the street selling cell phones as well. Well, in 2019, I set my budget and I want to make $1 million that year. And that's going to be a nice growth over the last year. And then I finished 2019 and I made $1 million. By that metric alone, I had a good year. I made $1 million. I hit my budget. Everything went well. Well, is that really good? Did I do a good job, or did the market just buy a lot of cell phones that year? The only way you know how to answer that question is if you figure out what Apple did, because Apple's results will tell you how good your results actually are. if Apple had a goal of selling $1 million worth of cell phones that year, but they sold $2 million of cell phones. Now what you're finding out is, yeah, you hit your budget and you hit your goal because you set a bad goal and your competitors outperformed you 2-1. Now is your result good? Well, relatively, that result's not as good anymore. And your investors are gonna be looking at Apple and saying like, well, I'm gonna put my money with them because they are selling more cell phones. This is the key. This is how you answer that question. And this is why share growth and all those pizza examples we gave you, this is why that matters. Because if you don't know what your competitors are doing and you don't know how well they're performing, you can't tell how well you're performing. I'm gonna leave you with one quick adage and that we use a lot in the hotel world, and then we'll jump to the winners. There's a phrase we use in the hotel world that it goes like this: you do not have to outrun the bear. You just have to outrun your friend. That's talking about share. That's talking about share loss and share growth. And that's talking about like a bear market, a bad thing that's chasing you. And you don't need to be the best. You just need to not be the worst. Because if your competitors are falling before you, you are outperforming them as a business. You are making more share than them. You are losing less money. Whatever the metric you care about is, you are outrunning the bear by outrunning your friends who are getting eaten by the bear. That's a very cruel example, but that is the reality of the business world. The business exists for one reason only, it is to make money and to continue growing, to outpace its own costs. And as such, these are the metrics we're gonna use to calculate, finally, we're gonna get to the winner and talk about, finally, of these 6 metrics, which of these Anitubers was the biggest ass in 2020. We've made it to the end. If you're just joining us because you skipped ahead, like I said in the timestamps, then welcome to the winner's circle. But we have already talked about our competitors, why we chose them, and what parameters we put around choosing those competitors. And again, here's our 8 beautiful Anitubers, all successful, all great content creators. So kudos to all of them. They all had great years, regardless of what I say next. We talked about the metrics. We talked about these 6 categories that we're gauging them by, and also how we calculate within them, things like percent change and share, and the concept of share. Let's put back up our subscriber pizza for those that were in that section that saw how we came to that conclusion and why this is relevant in answering that key business question: are my results good? And finally, we talked about share growth and outrunning the bear, right? It's sometimes not about what your actual result is, it's about how your result compares to what you did before and how that compares to what your other competitors are doing. We're gonna take all this information, jam it together into a big spreadsheet, which I've already done. I'll put on the screen at the end of this video so you can see the core results of everything. But we're gonna find one key winner. Again, our 6 categories: first place is 5 points if someone gets first in that category. Second place is 3 points if their share growth was second place. And third place is 1 point. I've gone to the second decimal to ensure that there are no ties in the calculation aspect of it, but there could be ties in the final results. So there is clearly a first, a second, and a third from each of the 6 categories. And without further ado, the winner of the total amount of points in 2020, and I present to you 2020's biggest ass, biggest Anituber share stealer, is Connor from CDawgVA. Well done, well done. Chapeau. Kudos to you, Connor. All the Kermits will be proud, all the cosplaying, all the voice acting. Well done, truly well done. So, how did he do it? Well, let's look at our 6 categories, and I'll tell you quickly what he accomplished in each one of them. Connor finished in 4 of these categories in some placement. He was only first in one of them, but he was second in 3 more of them, which is pretty impressive from a consistency of growth standpoint. In 4 different categories, he was outperforming. He was outgrowing his share compared to everybody else in 4 of our 6 categories, which says a lot. So congratulations, Connor. That's a great performance this year. He did not place in total videos. In fact, as an interesting aside note, 5 of our 8 competitors actually made less videos in 2020 than 2019. Probably a product of the times, but only a couple creators were actually making more videos in 2020. So thank you for putting those videos out. But in views, he was second place with share growth. In subs, he was first place. And this was Connor's only first place finish. But in subs, he gained the most share relative to everybody else in terms of how fast his subscriber count was growing. So kudos to Connor there. In reach, he was second place. So his views per video was growing at a pace almost the fastest of everybody, but second place is great. Loyalty, he did grow loyalty, but not enough to place in this situation. And finally, in, of course, capture, which was his subscribers per video, he did grow second place as well, which makes sense, right? Because he had a good subscriber growth in general. So that's it. Connor, first place. you want to know who got second and third place? Okay, I'll tell you. Don't worry about it. Very close battle. Second place, RDCworld1 right here. Second place, the second biggest ass of 2020. And I want to put this in perspective for you, of course, because context matters, right? They were already the biggest channel, so they already had strong performance overall in whole result. But what's very impressive about RDC World is that they still grew and outgrew other channels, even with how big they already were. So kudos to them. Their big 2 first place finishes was here in views, growing share the most in views relative to their own performance previously. So that's great for them, especially when the channel's already so big. It shows they're continuing to be engaging. And they also did very well in loyalty, which I think is very important. So first place finish in the change of loyalty. They grew the most loyalty, which means their videos they're putting out this year in 2020 were getting that many more views compared to their subscribers. So kudos to them. And we've got a tie for third place. I told you there's no ties in the actual performances, but there is a tie in the overall point scoring just by coincidence. And that tie goes to Gigguk in third place with 10 points and Nux Taku with third place with also 10 points. Gigguk did really well in reach and capture, being first place in both of those, with quite honestly very strong performance in terms of growth of his reach, which is important because he did less videos, all getting more views relative to last year. So good job, Gigguk. You may have had a tough year in terms of making videos, but the videos you were putting out were clearly effective. And finally, Nux Taku. Obviously, our man Nux Taku, he puts out a lot of videos and he's very proud of that. So he clearly grew the most share in videos, especially when 5 people were making less videos in 2019. So we have a lot to thank Nux Taku for giving us entertainment in 2020. And as such, of course, he's duly rewarded. But he also got third place in views and second place in subscriber growth share. So kudos to him. So now you've got our first through third, tied for third technically, but we've got, of course, Connor, CDawgVA. We've got RDCworld1 in second place, and we've got both Gigguk and Nux Taku in third place. So again, round of applause for them. All great performers. If one of your favorites is one of the ones I just listed, please share this video with them, or at least share it with their fan base so they can help celebrate with these performers of how big their ass was in 2020 and how much share they stole in 2020. How much more of that sweet subscriber pizza they're getting this year compared to last year. And finally, we're coming to the end of the video here, and I just want to pass out a couple of honorable mentions. But one in particular I think is very important. I'll put the full metrics up at the end of the video here. But there's one person we haven't talked about a lot, and that is Mother's Basement. Mother's Basement had a fairly kind of balanced, even year, much like Akidearest and Anime Man, who didn't score a lot of points in general. They grew and shrank in various regards, but there's one place in particular that Mother's Basement did do very well in. And in particular, they actually went from a second place to a first place, jumped someone in 2020, and is for the metric of loyalty. Mother's Basement is not the biggest channel, and it also doesn't really win a lot of the share wars in terms of the battles with other people who grew very significantly. In fact, Mother's Basement's growth is pretty steady over the time. But Mother's Basement did very well, and they had a lot of things fairly consistently throughout the time, but Mother's Basement has the highest share of loyalty of all the channels that we talked about, with about 15.6%, well outperforming the size of the channel relative to everybody else. So I want to give some credit to that, because I think as a new creator like myself, having my subscribers come back and watch my videos and getting a lot of views relative to my subscribers, I think is very important metrics for a channel. So for Mother's Basement to beat Anime Man, who was first place in 2019, eclipse them and move into first place in 2020, Mother's Basement, you get the coveted, not coveted, no one really cares about this award, the Anibosu Award for loyalty. So continue to do the great work. You have a very unique style of making videos, and clearly the hotel speak, the subscribers that you have must really buy into that model for you. And God, this is really awkward. So I think we can take a moment to recognize how Mother's Basement is very effective in continuing to get views from their own subscribers relative to their subscribers. And the fact that they have now moved into first place in terms of share, total share for loyalty in 2020 deserves praise. But with that, we've come to the end of the first ever Anituber Share Stealer Awards, the A.S.S Awards, and we've now identified who had the biggest ass in 2020. But you also learned a very important business lesson, which is of course one of my goals for this channel, is to teach you about management and leadership in the business world. And that is of course how to answer the key question, is this result good? There's gonna be a lot of people in your life that are gonna try and tell you that something that they did is great. As a leader, you need to be able to identify, is it really good? Are they selling me a bill of goods? And what do I compare it to find out if this in fact is as good as they say it is? But that's what this channel is all about, making you a better leader and a better manager in the business world. So thank you so much for watching. Of course, in the next episode, we'll continue to keep it maybe a little more nerd casual than this. Again, if you happen to be a big fan of any of these creators I talked about today, they're all great creators. None of my statistics have to do with the fact they had a good or bad year. They're just statistics, and context matters. But if one of your favorites won or did very well, feel free to share it with your fellow fans. And with that, I would say this meeting is adjourned. Gigguk.